Yo, GM, everybody. Sorry for those little bit of a technical hurdle to overcome this morning. Adam is down in consensus, so if anyone is down in Texas this week, go find our lovely team member who's representing. It'll be just me and Chris today hosting the show, and I'm very excited for this show because I've been trying to learn about Saturn actually for quite a long time. But before we do go over to Hex, I want to say GM to my lovely co-host for the day, Chris. Man, how are you feeling this morning?
Jake, man, feeling good. X rugged us a little bit, but we are live. Man, what a crazy market. But see Runes rebounding, a ton of builders just still heads down, kind of grinding. And it's good to see the infrastructure just kind of really be built out as people kind of gear up for, Bitcoin summer, Bitcoin season 2, Bitcoin season 3, and everything to follow.
Yeah, I stayed up late last night. Well, late my time on the West Coast until about midnight on this dog spaces with Leo. Man, it's quite wild that the dog market cap is almost 50% of the entire Runes market cap. It is quite wild to see, but we'll have this conversation. For those that weren't aware, over the last few weeks, this show, we've really taken initiative talking with all the Runes builders, especially those who are operating swap tools or order book style trading desks, to really figure out who's going to be the winner here. As we've talked about this over the last few months on the show, there's a lot of opportunity for some hungry builders to come in and really capture the trading fee mechanism in the Runes space. And Saturn, where we line this up quite well, that Saturn just launched their Runes trading platform yesterday. I did explore it for a little bit, but we will explore it today with Hex. So without further ado, Hex, appreciate you for joining us. I know a lot of people are really excited to learn more.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm a bit intimidated by the quality of your microphones. This is got a real professional setup going on here.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah. So what we do here, I was telling you kind of in the DMs, we do a live stream and an audio simultaneously. On the live stream, it's just me today. Usually it's me and Adam McBride, but he's down in consensus today. Don't be too intimidated. I've only hosted 500 shows. No big deal. No big deal here.
Got it. Well, proud to be the 501st.
Well, first, appreciate it, man. And, we could kind of just get straight to the point here. I do want to learn a little bit about your background. As we've been hosting this show over the last few years, especially as Runes and Ordinals have really taken off, we've noticed that a lot of builders in the current Ordinals and Rune ecosystem have come mostly from other chains. Predominantly in the early days of Ordinals, it was mostly the Bitcoin SV people coming in and building the marketplaces. And then we had a wave of a lot of ETH builders coming in and trying to build mint tools and all kinds of different gamification for Ordinals. as of recently for Runes, it seems like it's been a lot of Cardano and maybe Solana builders. So I'd love to hear a little bit of your background in the crypto space and what brought you over here.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you say that. I mean, just for context, so we've actually been around. So our first marketplace was before Rare Sats even had a tradable marketplace. Like there was no marketplaces whatsoever. So we started that was like the first kind of opportunity that we saw in the space. Was there was this incredibly inefficient and, dare I say, cowboy-led market of Rare Sats where people were essentially being sold snake oils. People were paying like $5 per piece of Satoshi despite having like a 1 trillion supply. So straight away, we just saw like a massive market inefficiency. The days of kind of spreadsheet trading ordinals. So been here for a little while now. But in terms of my background, so straight away we just saw like a massive I came into the space a little unorthodox. I wasn't buying drugs on Silk Road. We're talking the days of studying. Well, I was doing a PhD in a kind of been here for a decentralized academic peer review model. So essentially just a way of kind of replacing the current norm of scientific research. I was if you want data studying. Well, I was doing a PhD in a kind of through one single governing decentralized academic peer review model. So decentralization maxis that's replacing the current norm of scientific research, where if you want data to be various different people that are like either writing in the space, thinking about the party, developing in the space, probably aware is decentralization maxis that's very corruption prone. And Cointelegraph, I mean, as I was writing at Cointelegraph for about 6 months, different people that are like either writing in the space, thinking about the space, really developing in the space, in the Solana ecosystem. Eventually, I'm a bit of an on-chain maxi. I love anything that you can do on-chain. I think is just the most fun that you can imagine. It's this whole other world that no one can really police in any way they want, and that is just like I'm a bit of an on-chain maxi. I love anything that you can do on-chain. I think is just the most fun that you can imagine. It's this whole other world that no one can police in any way they want. Like Bitcoin has never been the on-chain chain. It's always just been this kind of dormant store of value. And I think as soon as we saw ordinals theory come along, anything goes here. Very simple innovation of numbering Satoshis. For the longest time, just Bitcoin has never been the on-chain chain. It's always just been this kind of been value and running away with that. As we saw pushing the limits, theory come along. I mean, yeah, as we've kind of delved further into the space and really getting to know some of the core Bitcoiners, I think there's just more of like an existential battle here. Yeah, just kind of been where I mean, not only do we have to fight for the battle of Bitcoin's relevancy, but we've also got to fight for the battle of Bitcoin's economic security, which I firmly believe comes from on-chain activity. So yeah, I mean, if we want to see Bitcoin still here alive well in 30, 40, 50 years' time, like we need to build up that base layer infrastructure. So Bitcoin's that's kind of the mission that we're on. Firmly believe comes from on-chain activity. So yeah, I mean, if we want to see Bitcoin still here alive well in 30, 40, 50 years' time, like we need to build up that base layer infrastructure. So that's kind of the mission that we're on at the moment.
Let's dive a little bit into kind of early Saturn. I remember there being a lot of hype, and that it was an order book. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but it was like an order book style trading platform for rare sats. Let's dive a little bit into kind of building that up, because at the time I remember it was very unique, a lot of hype, and it was a launch with the rug token, I believe. But then there was some trading platform, some mishaps in the beginning, and take us through kind of and building that up. Take us through kind of the early stages of Saturn, and there was a launch
so it's
with
quite funny.
The rug token, I believe. But then there was some
what's the best way for people to trade rare sats. In the kind of UTXO-based marketplaces that you see now, where you kind of like buy these bundles of rare sats, like that didn't cross our mind in the slightest. Like we just thought that's like the ugliest way we can possibly imagine of trading these things. That we just thought like that just can't be an option. And then like we factored in like, okay, well, what the supplies here? We've got pizza sats of like 1 trillion supply. Like these aren't supposed to be treated as non-fungible tokens. These are as close. I mean, I'm still very much to the point that Satoshis are the best fungible token that we have on Bitcoin. Rare sats are the first fungible tokens that we have on Bitcoin. So we kind of anticipated this fungible landscape of rare sats coming up, and we also anticipated things like block 420 sats being their own subset, or block 666 sats being their own subset. And it just wasn't, which was really interesting. I think like there was a massive narrative of people inscribing JPEGs onto singular rare Satoshis, which I think really changed the market behavior of how people consumed that. So we spent a long time building an order book on Bitcoin, which for anyone who is thinking about building an order book on Bitcoin, don't. It's the most infuriating process you can ever imagine. Like, the chain is not optimized for this in the slightest. But I mean, yeah, as a result of building this marketplace for rare sats that people didn't really end up trading, it accidentally kind of positioned us so perfectly for UTXO-based token trading. And then, yeah, to see Casey coming along and positioning Runes as a UTXO-based token was kind of music to our ears, because we had like a 6-7 month head start on anybody else. So, I mean, that's the reason why still now you see no order books on the base layer of Bitcoin, just because I think no one's been insane enough to try it. We were just really fortunate where we'd just been banging our heads against the wall trying to do it for so long that, yeah, the perfect storm came along and positioned us quite nicely for the release of Runes.
Yeah, there had been a handful of attempts at UTXO style trading over, you know, Bitcoin's history, going back to colored coins and counterparty, and you have atomicals. Did you happen to study any of the previous history before diving into the early editions of Saturn?
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because the STEP protocol was the whole paper that inspired the Rings token standard. Like, I still think that it is the most sophisticated way of doing tokens on Bitcoin, with instant and free distribution across Bitcoin, a utility that isn't available on any other blockchain, full stop. I just think is so overwhelming that we can do that on Bitcoin. And yeah, I mean, for the life of me, I still don't know why that hasn't seen the adoption. I still think its time in the sun is still to come. And then we have a few projects that are launching Ring tokens soon, which you may see like a bit of a resurgence there. But I mean, I think like there's an overwhelming similarity, and sorry to bore the audience with some of the technical details, but there's an overwhelming similarities between the SRC20 token standard and the Rune token standard that a lot of people just don't talk about. I know Casey did a really good job of kind of honoring some of the token standards that came before him as well, but I think it speaks volumes to how important narrative is, framing is. I hate to use the term key opinion leaders, but I think you really need the perfect storm for something to gain traction here. There's been so many brilliant ideas on Bitcoin, and none of them are really inherently flawed. And then you just kind of need that perfect storm for something to take off. So I know there's probably a lot of people in the audience that have been particular fans of certain protocols. I won't name any names specifically, and you're wondering why they haven't seen the traction that they have. And like, I really just want to defend some of these teams that are building protocols that aren't seeing traction. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's not a lot wrong with the narrative or the actual technology here. I think it's more of like a narrative problem. And I think for people like Leonidas, for Casey, like, we don't want to have an ecosystem with 50 different token standards. You just want the average person to think, right, these are coins on Bitcoin. How can I participate? But it's a weird, eclectic group of theory and different projects on Bitcoin, and yeah, trying to work with whatever happens to be the most popular is seems to be a bit of a fool's errand.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. The founder of Emblem, our founder, worked at Mastercoin back in the day, and that was really one of the first attempts at fungible tokens on Bitcoin. I guess it would be second, right after colored coins. And so as Runes had popped up, Shannon had told us that it looked very similar to some of the early attempts of fungible tokens on Bitcoin. And then for a long time, almost 10 years, there was really no other attempt at it until Casey really came back to the scene and decided that he built a very strong NFT protocol. He also probably just hated BRC20 and created something, quote unquote, a little bit more efficient. I do want to pass it over to Hooked on Roonies, who's one of our favorite regular guests, man. What are your thoughts on Saturday? You have any questions for X?
Oh, hey guys. Can I speak to Adam, please?
Adam's in Texas. He's not here today.
I know. I'm just messing. I know.
I know you miss him. I know you miss him though.
I was just joking around. To be honest, I overslept a little bit because the other day, I go to close my eyes, I start falling asleep, and then all of a sudden there'd be a little whisper in my ear that said, PowerPoint. I just am so excited about your PowerPoint presentation, Jay. It's like you can't sleep at night. You said PowerPoint, and boy, my hash rate went right up. I can't wait. There's nothing in this world more exciting than a PowerPoint.
That's tomorrow. But What do you think about? You have any questions for Hex at Saturn? You know, maybe you'll be able to trade some hooked on Roonies, which has been trending recently. So we got to get some liquidity on there.
We don't have to talk about that. We don't have to talk about the Rooney. I don't want to bore everybody with the Rooney, but we do want to send it to Mars. So Saturn is like, it's a great name. Hex.
I love it. Appreciate you for coming on. Also, if there's anyone in the crowd that wants to come up, you know, we always host a show very open. Anybody could come in, ask some questions. I do want to pass it over to Chris, who's my lovely co-host for today. You know, of all of the people that we've talked with, have you dabbled a little bit on Saturn? And what's your thoughts of the DEX that just popped up yesterday?
Yeah, I was setting up yesterday, checking it out a lot, looking through some of the docs. Hex, what do you think? You were building on Solana before. What are some of the things that kind of are more cohesive between the two ecosystems that you found when building between Bitcoin and Solana? And was that pretty helpful in getting your start over on Bitcoin? And kind of what do you think are, you know, there's so many different teams building on Bitcoin, but what are some of the biggest hurdles that you think are kind of facing some of these builders currently?
Okay, great question. In terms of like the similarities with Solana, like I would really say there's not any. In terms of the actual like coding architecture, it's an incredibly different landscape. It's much more difficult. Like with Solana or any virtual machine based chain, you can kind of just like code your way out of problems. Whereas with Bitcoin, you need to just think of like impossibly abstract solves for everything. And then you've also got really difficult design questions. Every single decision point that you make for a product on Bitcoin, you need to think like, do we want to try to educate the users on how Bitcoin works? Or do we want to try to obfuscate the reality of Bitcoin's imperfections so much that the users don't even know that's how it works? And you've seen different teams take different approaches to this. And it's kind of cool. Like I have to say, it's honorable almost that Magic Eden are taking the approach of like getting people to split their UTXOs beforehand. But I think like, if I've learned anything from Solana, it's that you've got to really understand like who your users are. And for a lot of people, you just mention even the term UTXO and you scared off a lot of people. So I think like that's kind of one thing that I've taken over from that is like people like not only expect a user experience to be flawless, like they will not use it unless like that's like the case. I think like I don't know, there's a lot of different theories as to why Runes didn't see the initial traction that we wanted, whether it was overhyped or whatever. But I would like to just say that like I think we're overcomplicating it a little bit, and people just really weren't expecting that. Like they were seeing bundles or blocks of random amounts of this token. They didn't really know how to price it. It ran out of UTXOs, whatever the hell that meant. Like it was just really overwhelming, and you're just not going to see that traction when you've got incredibly easy meme coins that you can buy on other chains for fractions of a penny that are having just these like catastrophic successes. So that's kind of one thing. There's just like a real demand for kind of perfection there in terms of the user experience. But beyond that, like what do I think the biggest hurdles are for building on Bitcoin? Like the hurdles, like there's an extortionate amount. Like for one, it's just like how difficult Bitcoin is. I think is a really large one. One of my biggest, I guess, not so much of a hurdle, but one of my biggest concerns with Bitcoin is just that we kept siloing ourselves into all these different pools that we can't really concentrate liquidity to have these like standout successes. I think that was like the big issue with like BRC20 and Runes is like I recently just spent I think 3 to 4 weeks in Hong Kong for the various different conferences, and the amount of people there that are still incredibly heavy into BRC20s as opposed to Runes was really eye-opening. And now you're seeing again like the other pull on the other side of the rope where we're now trying to see BRC20s 2.0, which is I'm always pro innovation, but I think from a speculation point of view and like a liquidity point of view, I think like the more we try to silo ourselves into all these different fragmented ecosystem, I think the harder the challenge is going to be. I know the narrative of unlocking Bitcoin's $1 trillion market cap is a really romantic narrative, but let's be quite frank, like the actual on-chain liquidity is less than 1% of that really. So I think like that's kind of my biggest concern for Bitcoin at the moment.
I appreciate that. What do you think about hooked on Roonies?
I think that's super important that you kind of mentioned the difference between the liquidity on chain and the actual, access to capital. how do you feel that just kind of, you know, the slice of the pie really is so big, right? And it seems that it would only work to your guys' benefit that, you know, it's kind of had a little bit of a rocky start when the end goal, the end prize is so big. So I feel like a lot of builders have kind of been discouraged or maybe a little bit blindsided that adoption was a little bit slower than anticipated. But I think someone in your position, you know, you're going to market already, and kind of working with the community as you go. I think, you know, it really just kind of benefits you. How does it feel in terms of just sentiment across the builders that you know? Is there a lot of discouragement? Is there a lot of just kind of struggling to kind of piece these puzzles together? Or what are you seeing among like the other builders in the community?
That's a really great question. I would say like, and this is the case for every chain. Like, I don't mean to trash talk it too much, but like Bitcoin especially is one of the more like cliquey groups of people. So it's very, very difficult to break into certain circles. So I would say that like the communication between builders is incredibly limited, and I'm not kind of sure why. But like some of the most inspiring people that I know and just like work with closely, like people like Chartfu and like Jan is crazy. Like Jan firmly believes that like any big company on Bitcoin will be a multi-billion-dollar company. And like he's possessed with that. And it's just like the most infectious energy. And it's the same with Chartfu. And I think like I don't like my candid answer is like, as much as I've tried to break out into different groups of things, I think certain people are not communicating for whatever reason. So I don't know what the sentiment is like across the board. What I will say is that like for us, like I don't think we're not even looking at it from this cycle perspective. Like again, like I think there's a much larger, there's like a really scary, dark, shadowy figure following Bitcoin right now, which is its minor security problem. And we need to figure out a way to get more fees on chain. And like I know I see that as almost a crisis, but I also see that as a massive opportunity because I think the narrative is really going to be switching there. So I think like if anyone building in the space at the moment, I think like if you have like a 10, 20 year horizon, like I don't think you could feel, I feel more comfortable building on Bitcoin than any other chain, full stop. Like I think it's the most like, I don't know what's the right wording there, but yeah, like if we want to keep the whole fever dream of crypto alive, like we need to solve that problem for Bitcoin. And I think like incentives will soon align on base layer activity on Bitcoin.
Very good response. What's up, Hooked? What are you thinking?
What's a UTXO?
It's actually a really good question and something that I feel pretty practiced in replying. I know you're likely trolling me, but there will be some people in the audience that I unironically don't know what a UTXO is. So UTXO is really frustrating. And the best way that I like to imagine what UTXO is like imagine you have a $10 note. You've got one $10 note and you want to buy something that's worth $1. Well, in order to make that $1 purchase, you need to provide the person that's selling you something your whole $10 note. And that's kind of what happens with UTXOs is you can have a UTXO that's larger than your order. So when you make a small order smaller than your UTXO, you need to exchange the whole UTXO in order to do so. So what we're really trading on Bitcoin isn't sats, isn't Bitcoin. We're trading like these bags of sats, which makes everything really, really difficult. And if you want to take some money out of your bag of sats, that's also going to cost. So like if we want to do some like more intricate and complicated functionality, it gets really, really expensive just a result of UTXOs. So like UTXOs are unfortunately the most fundamentally true thing about Bitcoin, but also one of its hardest design limitations.
That was actually a pretty good response.
When you just let your Bitcoin sit there, does it create UTXOs?
No, but and this is kind of interesting as well. So it's also what miners have experienced as well, and like some products as well. And I think this is a problem that's really rare. Like no one really faces it. But like for us, for example, we take fees on every transaction. So we have thousands and thousands and thousands of UTXOs within our wallet, which makes spending fees within our wallet really difficult. So we have to consolidate all of our fees into larger UTXOs. So know if your Bitcoin sat idly there, won't be creating UTXOs. But if you have a platform on Bitcoin, the sheer quantity of UTXOs you'll be receiving is a significant issue.
So if Bitcoin rips to a milli, we're all screwed.
No, we're all rich, Roonies. We're all rich.
Well, you gotta move. They gotta move that around. You better organize them UTXOs before.
Yeah, the UTXO management tools that some of these teams have built, not but and it's generally out of necessity. You know, as we started building OmniSat over a year ago, one of the main hurdles we ran into outside of BRC20 was the UTXO management. And so I've noticed a lot of these platforms actually have UTXO management tools, not because they intended to build it, but because they had to build it out of necessity, and then it becomes a user product there afterwards. What's up, Chemist? Thanks for coming on stage, man.
Hey, GM. Thanks for having me up. I just have a quick question. First off, congrats on the launch for Saturn. I was dabbling around on the product last night, and it was smooth. I have a question about the trading wallet, and if I remember using that for like the rug token back then, but is that wallet custodial?
So it's a non-custodial multi-sig. So what that means is users have 100% control over the funds, so no one can move those funds apart from the user. The reason that we have those multi-sigs, I wrote a small post about it. Maybe I'll try to pin it as I'm rambling on here. But the reason why we do that is, well, really for a host of reasons. We initially didn't have one, but where we have open buy orders on the platform, that presents a significant issue when factoring in things like mempool sniping. So we talk to quite a lot of institutional market makers that really want to participate in the Bitcoin fungible space, and without open orders existing, that makes it very difficult to do so. However, if you have an open order without a mempool sniping resistance, like point of friction, like our multi-sigs, any open order can essentially be replaced with like a fraudulent order, and their money would be taken. So it's the only way for us to operate as a safe order book. But with that, we get a number of conveniences. So it's interesting, we were just talking about UTXO management, where UTXO management within a multi-sig is very simple, where on Magic Eden, for example, or other UTXO-based marketplaces, you choose one UTXO and you just buy it. However, with our marketplace, you can say, hey, I just want to buy $1,000 of whatever runes. And our backend will essentially match you the cheapest set of UTXOs to fulfill your order to the best of our order book's ability. And that also works inversely. Let's say you're selling $100,000 worth of a rune token, you sell it within one UTXO. Well, our backend will split that UTXO on your behalf between a number of buyers. So we can have multiple wallets involved within one transaction. So we're starting to get towards much more of an actual fungible reality. Sell it within one UTXO. Now, I'm also aware that on Bitcoin, depositing your coins anywhere that isn't your own wallet is just an extreme no-no. We are very aware of that. So we're starting to get towards so one of the things that we're working on at the minute, we've got a few bugs to iron out with just the initial launch. I'm also aware that pleasantly surprising the actual lack of bugs anywhere. Quick shout out to our dev team for that one. No-no. We are very aware of that. Yeah, the next kind of feature that we'll be building out is an option to not use the trading wallet. Now, this experience will be extremely limited. So this will be the similar experience that you're used to on Magic Eden, where you won't be able to get all of these efficiencies like smart UTXO matching, partially filled orders. But if you do just want to take a clean order, you can do that. Now, this experience and what we're hoping there is that users will have a different kind of, dare I say, emotional relationship with their trading wallet, and instead of seeing it as being this liability, it's this route to cheaper, faster, better trading. You can do that. So yeah, we wish the trading wallet wasn't there as well, but working within Bitcoin's extremely limited confines is just simply the only way to allow this kind of product to exist.
That's a banger explanation. Thank you for that. I have one more question. Whenever I think at the end when you're signing with, for example, I'm using the X1st wallet, it gives you a big red warning. I forget what the actual code is, or the outcode that it's.
Yeah.
But I take that as just like, hey, I'm sending you Bitcoin with no promise that you're going to send anything back. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the sig hash none. So so Victor from Xverse, if you're listening to this, please work with us. No, I'm joking. They've been amazing. But yeah, so a sig hash none can be a problematic transaction if you're dealing with third parties that aren't trusted. So I know, again, trust is a very sensitive topic within Bitcoin, but sig hash none is an extremely useful form of transaction that can have malicious use cases. What it essentially does is it allows us to have full custody of the singular transaction that you've sent. So we don't have full custody of everything within your funds, but within your wallet. But it allows, like, let's say you've placed that $100,000 Rune sell order. Well, what that allows us to do is to split that UTXO in whatever we feel like the order book needs it to do in order to best match it. So it allows for these really interesting use cases that, there's just a stigma around the sig hash none transaction, which I do think is a really useful aspect of Bitcoin. But yeah, I think Xverse are doing the right thing where it can be used as an attack vector. But if it is a trusted party, and I mean, we've been operating now for, I think, just about a year, I'd like to say we're a trusted party. I think for certain platforms, I don't think it makes sense to have that warning message there, just as it is a function of Bitcoin itself. And yeah, I mean, not sure how else I can kind of frame that response.
No, that's perfect. I think, like you said, it's kind of maybe an expert's hands. Hopefully they can help out with that. But thanks for answering the questions. I think that, this kind of order book style, what you guys have with the product you guys have, is kind of the next step that Runes needs. I think it's marketplaces and infrastructure like this is going to be the next catalyst that kind of gets away with that friction that Runes has right now. So congrats again, guys. Thanks for having me up.
Hey, Cam, please mind your surroundings. We're all worried sick about you. It sounds like you're walking in traffic.
Oh shit! I'm outside. I'm outside work, so maybe that's why.
Dang, what a legend! Getting in the questions outside of work. What a true pioneer here. I love it, Kevin. Hex. So let's dive into the protocol and the platform now. And the first question I'll present is this, and I also have it pulled up on the live stream for those that are following along. Runes has been out now about a month and a half, and fungible tokens on Bitcoin, since ordinals have started with BRC20, has been out for about a year and a half or so, or a year, 14 months since BRC20 came out. As you look and as you're building Saturn for Runes, did you happen to look around the space and see like what type of DEX or AMM or trading style platforms exist? For example, I mentioned that, I've been working on OmniSat since we founded that back in April. We've had on DotSwap and Fluid Tokens on, who are also trying to do a swap tool. We're beginning to see some mempool, quote unquote, mempool marketplaces where you could kind of snipe the PSBT or kind of restructure it. What does Saturn provide here that all of these other Runes trading platforms does not provide?
Well, I'd like to say it comes from the order book functionality. So again, having these whole host of features like open limit orders, partially filled orders, being able to involve multiple wallets within a singular transaction. I think things like that's kind of where it stands out. But I think the thing that people will identify with the most is just that really similar user experience that you're used to on a Binance Pro or Coinbase Pro or Bird Eye type platform. And yeah, I mean, this is maybe not the best business from us, but I can't say we've been too aware of like what our kind of quote unquote competitors have been doing. We've just kind of been like, hey, what's the product that we'd like to have for trading these tokens on, and how can we build that?
Okay, so you're building for basically kind of yourself, right? You're building for your own preference and using your own expertise instead of kind of looking around and seeing what's missing from the market, correct?
Yeah, and I'd say like that's kind of been like a reoccurring theme with this team. Like we haven't really had the cultural buy-in that a lot of these guys have had, and I think that's kind of been a bit of a superpower. Like it's allowed us to kind of look at rare sats in this unique way that, again, wasn't what the market anticipated, but I think it resulted in the product that we have now, which I'm kind of glad. So yeah, like I hate to say we pride ourselves in being ignorant, but in a kind of way, that's kind of been the thing that's proved most successful for us.
Yeah, I agree. And also,
I take pride in it.
So before we do move on to a little bit more of the platform, can you explain what Saturn rings are or what they were? Is this a different type of fungible token that Saturn had built, and what were your experiences from building this?
Yeah, so I'm so glad that you brought this up, because this is like still to this day the most favorite thing that we've contributed to Bitcoin, and I'm really excited for some of these tokens to have their time in the sun again. And like it's exactly colored coins. Like that is the best way of imagining it. But for people in the audience that may not know what colored coins are, Casey did something so genius, I can't believe it was anything else than accidental, where he just numbered Satoshis in the order they were created. And that was hilariously useful. And one of my favorite use cases of this is that we can now see who is holding what specific sats. And we can also trade specific sats as a complete subset token, in the same way that we know exactly what are the numbered Satoshis that are pizza sats. We know, let's just say it's 1 to 300. They're all pizza sats. And we can trade them as an isolated token, despite being Satoshis. And what are pizza sats really? Well, pizza sats are just a social construct, in the same way that any rare sat is just a social construct. Casey or Rodama just decided that, hey, I just believe these sats to be culturally or statistically significant. And we were like, fuck it, yeah, that sounds great. And we thought, well, why not take that one step further? What happens if we just put that ability to define any Satoshis to be part of a fungible token? And that's kind of where we hit what I still feel is a really dynamite idea, where you can have targeted distribution of your token free and instantly. So let's just say we want to get every single Bitcoin Puppets wallet. So we go and get, I don't know, a few thousand wallets, and we can see within their wallet what Satoshis they're holding. Well, you as a creator can verify 100 sats in each Bitcoin Puppets wallet to be part of your new token. And all of that would happen completely free, completely instantly, with no mempool congestion. And in the very successful case study of Rug, it will trade as an isolated fungible token. And I think, like, we've seen, I can't remember how much Leonidas spent on the airdrops that he's done. I know I saw some extortionate figures of like $300,000-$400,000, which is great if you're Leonidas. But if you're just like your average person that wants to contribute to the Bitcoin space, I think providing these routes for people to create projects with one of the most socially enabling distribution methods being free and instant distribution, I think you open the door to an army of builders that would otherwise just be completely put off by this space. And yeah, I mean, like, we had to make a very an annoying decision point where, yeah, Casey came along, the genius that had come up with ordinals theory, and also presented a really good fungible token. And like, people can only understand so many fungible token standards at once. So we kind of let that kind of have its time in the sun. But what we'll be doing shortly with Saturn is we'll be providing a launch pad which will allow people to have, well, the choice of either making a rune token or a ring token. And you'll also see the differences in costs. And I think once you provide users the path of least resistance, I think they take that. So that's a bit of the ring token standard. But please feel free to dive a little deeper if any of that wasn't clear.
No, I appreciate you for explaining that. I have here pulled up on the live stream. We'll just talk about some of the logistics of the platform. I have the swap tool up, or the swap module, and I want to swap from pizza sats to Satoshis. And at the very bottom of it, it says insufficient liquidity. The order book for pizza Satoshi is empty. Can you just explain what this means, and how does Saturn plan to fill or build sufficient liquidity so that you can have kind of frictionless trading on the platform?
Yeah, well, this is, I mean, like, pizza sats is one of my most interesting. I mean, like, take in mind the context I said earlier, that people once upon a time were buying pizza sats for for $5. Whereas in Saturn, we've had pizza Satoshi. People are selling pizza Satoshis for 1 Satoshi. So you go back in the day when people were selling whole collections and their USP was that we're inscribed on pizza sats. Well, you can't even swap them one-to-one with normal sats at the moment. So there's just like zero buy pressure there, which is, yeah, unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, how are we going to solve liquidity? I mean, this comes from a whole heap of reasons. I mean, there's more like internal strategies, some fun things that I can't quite describe yet. And they come with launches mostly, free token distributions, user rewards. So we've been kind of hinting at a few things. we kind of soft released the platform in a way where we didn't come out with all of these big initiatives because we just wanted to give the platform a little bit of breathing room. So if any bugs did present themselves as we strain it a little bit, we can solve them on the fly, and things seem to be good. So from now, we're going to start introducing some of these like user rewards here. So simply just by depositing runes on the platform and selling them or listing them at any price makes you eligible for the next kind of airdrops that we have coming up. And then beyond that, what we want to be doing is like kind of featuring some launches. So I probably shouldn't be saying this, my devs are going to kill us, but we did build out a whole launchpad project, which is essentially like a Luminex. Luminex just did a fantastic job. So we didn't bother actually putting that that side of our product live yet. But with that, we'll be able to do things like whitelisted token launches. So you can only make sure that certain wallets can have access to your Rune token and stuff like that. And I think once people use the platform, they can see like a full order book and they have that experience. Like what we're anticipating is a user stickiness. So we're trying to approach this from two angles. Like one, trying to incentivize users to bring liquidity onto the platform, as well as working with our cap table and institutional market makers who have been challenging, as well as kind of providing that stickiness element to it with like these launches so people can really use the platform in a way that doesn't cost them anything.
I'm interested. What do market makers think about runes and fungible tokens on Bitcoin? You mentioned that it's a challenge. Is it specifically because trading on Bitcoin is insufficient, or is there something else to that?
Volumes have just been too low. That's like the unfortunate reality of it. So we speak to a number of parties, some like the most high profile OTC desks you could possibly imagine in crypto that are used to dealing daily with kind of 8-figure transactions and swaps. And they came up from the position like, hey, look, we're open to Bitcoin fungibles, but we kind of really need to see a proof of concept here. I think like the lack of AMMs is like a really significant barrier. And that's results for like these like kind of illiquid, low volume tokens. I mean, yes, we're seeing somewhat. I mean, dog token is like, I'd say like our standout token at the minute. It's doing really well. But even like its on-chain value is still sitting at like $6 to $7 million of like on-chain value in a day, which is like strong and it's good for Bitcoin. But you consider that like that wouldn't even be a top 400 coin on some of these other chains. So I think like that's been one of the biggest limiting factors for us is like we're trying to speak to these guys and say, hey, look, you really want to be taking Bitcoin fungible seriously, but we just haven't seen that volume that would warrant it successful. I mean, these guys are literally like micro scalping for profits. And if that volume isn't there, it makes it extremely risky.
Yeah, that makes sense. So as I go through this platform, you have 3 tabs: markets, swap, limit. You can find different tokens from runes and rare sats. So I'm gonna click on RSEC here. It presents you immediately with the swap, but you can then click over and you click on limit and just assume I know nothing here. And I open up this limit order book and I'm just met with a ton of different numbers and graphs and buttons. Can you just walk us through, just as simply as possible, is what this limit order book is and really how to operate it? Because this hasn't existed on runes or for BRC20 yet. So a lot of people may not be familiar with it. So just try to explain it as simply as possible.
Yeah, for sure. So I will actually put hands up here. So there is actually a slight bug. So if you go over to the order terminal on the limit page, I believe let me see if I can pull up this live stream. Okay, yeah, I've got it up here. So if you go on the left hand of the screen, there's kind of like your order form. At the moment, you see price and sat. So it's like what value do you want to be buying these sats at? So it's currently got the market rate in there, which I believe is 13.2. Let's just say you're anticipating some huge FUD storm coming out about RSEC, I don't know. And you put in a 10 sat order and you want to put it at, I don't know, you want to buy 100,000 R6 or whatever. And at the bottom, that's going to give you the total value of that order. What the toggle in the top right of the page there's a little $sign and a little Satoshi sign. What that should do is be able to give you the option to swap between pricing in Satoshis and pricing in dollars. But what we're going to be doing on the next update is also have like a small grayed out $sign conversion. So users won't have to navigate from one side of the screen to the other. They can just kind of see it all within that. So this is just a way of essentially placing orders, and it can also work inversely. So you're currently on the buy section of that order form terminal. And if you select the sell section, you just get the inverse of that. And that allows you to sell at whatever price you imagine there's a massive pump up coming. If you just go to the right, there's a thing that says order book here with all these lovely green lines and red lines. The length of the line relates to the depths of the order. So how many of that token is being sold at that price range. One cool feature here. So if you click the cheapest or the lowest selling sell order there, so I believe it's at 18 price at quantity of 1,100. If you just click that,
Oh, that was buy, right? So this will be sell down here.
Yes, if you go to the lowest red order, the lowest red for the sell order. So if you click that one, that will automatically fill out this order form on the right, on the left here. So you can kind of snipe orders at your convenience there.
Oh, wow, this is nice. I don't think I've seen this before. It's nice.
And once you've submitted an order, at the bottom middle of the page is a history tab. So here we have all of your open trades. So let's just say you put in 10 different buy orders. You'll be able to see all of your buy orders, whether they've been filled, partially filled, as well as your closed trades. In the middle, we have a shouts out to TradingView, who have been fucking awesome to work with. They are very picky about who they provide this charting to. And they've been awesome. So we have a full TradingView chart here. So you got all of the fun tools like Fibonacci retracements, my favorite's the ruler. So this is going to be a bit more fun. The reason the chart looks a little bit janky at the minute is we only opened the order books yesterday. So we're navigating this period of kind of low liquidity. But yeah, so if you was going to the minute chart and there was an order every minute, you would see like a really beautiful printed chart, as if you'd see on kind of these TradingView things that you used to. At the top of the terminal, you've got all of the token information. So 24-hour volume in USD, 24-hour in sats, the highest price it's been today, the lowest price it's been today, the 24-hour change, as well as the current market price. Bottom right, you've got trade history. So this is universal activity. So every trade that's made on this token pair, you'll see in the bottom right. So it's just a good idea of you'll be able to see how much people are trading it, what quantities they're trading it. And then just above it is a search token terminal. So this is pretty self-explanatory. Type in the token that you want to be trading, and hopefully you'll be presented with it. Two things to bear in mind here. So we've got an update coming. So the top bar where it says RSIC Genesis and all of the token information, you'll be able to just click RSIC Genesis, and that will just bring up the search token terminal there. So that's more of like an intuitive user experience. As well as we'll be able to have this whole experience customizable. So you'll be able to minimize the search token aspects, which will allow you to have a bigger chart. You can bring your order form over to the right of the page if that's how you like it. And that will also memorize your trading experience. So every time you come to Saturn, it remembers exactly how you like to trade. So yeah, you're pretty plugged in to trade as aggressively as you like.
Yeah, it is quite intuitive. I do like the customization. From a technical standpoint, right, you see here on the search side, you have the first handful are all runes, but then as you go down, right, you have the rug token, and then you have rare sats. How does your system manage to organize the difference between the different fungible token or non-fungible token types?
It doesn't. They're all just UTXO based standard. One just has op return data and one just doesn't. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter what token you're trading on Saturn. You're trading those dreaded things we call UTXOs. Some of those UTXOs have runes attached to them, and some of them don't. And they're actually just significant Satoshis in that UTXO. So yeah, it's been really convenient for us that all of these token standards decided to go on this kind of UTXO modeled route as opposed to BRC20, which is more account based. If we were to have BRC20s in here, this would be a very different conversation. But yeah, it's been a really nice plugin for us.
That would be interesting. Is Saturn, or are you eyeing any of these other fungible token standards, BRC20, ARC20, counterparty, etc.?
So this is a bit of a hot debate internally. This product, how we have it now, like I wanted it like this 4 months ago. And the only reason it wasn't like this 4 months ago is because we spent all of that time trying to optimize for runes. And it's now, if we make another decision to integrate another token standard, it's going to be X amount of time where we don't kind of develop the product. So undecided at the minute, and also depends kind of how traction goes. If we're successful enough to bring on some more developers and we can kind of work on these things in tandem, for sure. But for now, I just really want to keep iterating on this product, so it's just the most useful and intuitive tool that we have on Bitcoin for trading these fungibles.
Yeah, the platform is quite intuitive, and it's funny because at Emblem we have the same conversation. When you have limited resources, you gotta be able to fully focus your attention in one direction. It's so easy to get sidetracked in this space. It's insane. There's a hand, so I do want to call on Amalia. Thanks for being patient.
Hi guys, how are you doing? I have a couple questions just for my better understanding of the platform that I'm looking at right now. Unfortunately, I cannot see the live stream. So I'm assuming that this is a PSBT based order book, and then by you using non-custodial self-custody vaults, you allow for yourself to actually be able to charge fees both from sell and buy order, because otherwise your PSBTs could have been snatched by someone who's not actually a user of your platform, where he can just bypass your fees and just buy or sell the token without you getting any fees, right? So that's very interesting. And I love the idea of using non-custodial vaults with multi-sig, because I've seen a lot of teams when building with PSBTs and DLCs on layer 1 actually trying to create a network of validators to decentralize their multi-sig instead of just going on in a completely non-custodial manner, where the initial user actually holds private keys to the vault. Now, my question is, obviously, aside from something that was already touched upon as a question, also integrate BRC20s, obviously here you would have to work with double and on the sell order, these quadruple DAM UTXOs, which is insane. And then UTXO management becomes crazy, and also cost and time of that is insane. So I understand that probably isn't the priority here, but I have another twist question. Are you planning to create an order book where you have a rune versus not Satoshi, but another rune? And that obviously, I'm assuming would need double vaulting, right? Because there will be one vault for one asset, another vault for another asset, and then probably another vault in between in order to charge both parties fees, and then to actually consolidate that. So I'm curious if you're planning to do something like that with those arbitrary pairs.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm just going to put my hands up and say you've probably got way more technical understanding than I do of Bitcoin whatsoever. So it's a wake up call being able to speak to someone that is so technically well versed in Bitcoin. Just seeing that you're part of the Ordinals Council, that's awesome. Good to finally talk.
Yeah, we actually did come across each other, but it's been some time, and
I
it's
remember.
Very good to see Saturn bloom so much, because I do believe you were just going live with your rare sats marketplace.
That's right. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, so in answer to your question, so we're having to kind of pick our battles, and we're kind of naively hoping that someone can solve this problem before us, before it becomes a sticking point. Like we've got some kind of like bad solves for it, and this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of the spaces for anyone that was listening there. Like with Bitcoin, you unfortunately can't like kind of code your way out of problems. You just need to think of like these really abstract solves here. So we're just kind of giving that landscape a bit of time and letting other teams kind of iterate on runes. We have larger, higher priority items to be tackling first. And then we'll kind of assess that landscape when we get there to see whether rune to rune swaps seems like a viable challenge to be solving at the moment. It is tricky. I mean, like one of the things that I'm particularly interested in is like, how can we, I know obviously we can't have AMMs on the base layer, but like, is there anything that we can do that can kind of imitate the behavior of an AMM, whether it's like an automated bot that is like a custodied solution? There's like some really interesting stuff that I'd love to solve before we start looking at rune to rune. But great question. And you kind of taken me aback by your technical knowledge a bit.
I mean, I think you're already using multi-sig vaults, not that are self-custodial towards the user, right? So I think you could actually use the same type of vaults to lock up, because the vault means that it doesn't necessarily have to belong to, so the assets that land in the vault doesn't necessarily have to come from one user, right? So that means we could pull actually, let's say, a bunch of runes into one vault when, let's say, there are a bunch of people coming that want to sell, but that could actually be one part of, quote unquote, not really, but let's call it liquidity pool, right? And then we would have another vault when a bunch of different users would pull Satoshis. And with that being said, we could try to bring a market maker in and actually trade this back and forth. But then still, the fees would have to be low enough at the time, or kind of predictable, right? So it could be something. It definitely needs a plenty of research, but I do believe the same type of vaults that you're using right now could have that use case as well.
Yeah, we're definitely getting into the weeds a little bit here, and I'd like to bring my engineers that would do a much better job of navigating this question than I would. But from my understanding, I think like the two big factors there, like one is how complicated the transaction would be, and therefore how expensive it would be. But also, from the way I believe that our order books works, you need to know 100% what is going to happen within that given transaction. So I don't know if we can kind of have like that open pool. I think that any funds that are moved are only moved if the other part of the transaction is 100% confirmed.
Right. So what would have happened is one of the party of both a multi-sig would be so-called market maker, or that would be Saturn itself. And Saturn is the last confirmation. Okay, this went through. We're not draining one side or another. The final truth is truth, and we can proceed with finalizing the transaction. Obviously, time-wise, the transaction wouldn't be smooth, but that wouldn't be actually an order book anymore. So that's definitely compromising on a time of finality, but well, it's not order book.
Yeah, and the other aspect to that, and it's not to say it's an unsolvable problem, is the legal aspect of it at the moment. At the moment, we're very clean being non-custodial. Whereas, yeah, if we start custodying any funds, I think that changes the legal landscape quite some time. But anyway, let's catch up privately. It'd be great to catch up anyway, and I can bring some of the engineers on and we can talk about some of these more abstract things, because, yeah, we can get lost in some fun stuff there.
Wow, that was an interesting conversation. Matter has their hand up. Thanks for remaining patient. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Hi, everyone. Yes. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Congratulations on the launch, everyone. Very happy you've been following Saturn for a while, and I'm actually very excited that this finally launching. I have two questions that I might have missed, if you explained it. But first is, I think Ag mentioned the use of SigHash none, and how it has an advantage over Unisat and Magic Eden. I know that Unisat and Magic Eden use something like SigHash single, which allows you to basically sign for a specific input and the specific corresponding output at a specific index, and that allows someone that was an outsider to somehow catch the transaction in the middle, reorder that they want, and probably cut you out. So is that still something possible? And if that was not clear, I mean, I can take that specific SigHash single and combine a bunch of them together and basically compose my own transaction.
No, so this relates back to why we have the multi-sig to begin with. So that allows us to make these SigHash none transactions safely, because you're only going to be interacting with other multi-sig wallets. And essentially what that SigHash none allows us to do is have full custody over the single transaction that you're making. So we can split that UTXO on your behalf to match it as smartly as possible. So let's say, for example, you've put in a $50,000 buy order for dog token, and we can essentially match your order to a bunch of UTXOs that you don't need to know prior to making that transaction. So that's the key difference between these kind of SIG hashes.
Okay, but how is that? How are people signing the other buy transactions? if I'm putting in a $50,000 buy, then someone is putting in like equivalent amount in dog. How are those transactions signed? Are they Zcash nuns, or do you ask like people on the spot? How is the order book tracked? Is it internal in your matching engine?
Yeah, so everybody, your counterparty signs the exact same Zcash num, which allows us to kind of match these orders freely, automatically.
Okay, so everyone signs a Zcash num. How does that work? I'm not sure that is possible, actually. Like, you have to either like do Zcash like 00. Is this 00 or Zcash none is like nothing?
So
because the Zcash, okay, let me be more clear. At the end of the signature, you put like the byte, which is 03 or like 131 or like and like a combination of the Zcash parameters is allowed. Is Zcash none the 00 or is Zcash none basically means non-existent?
I'm not too sure on the specifics of that. But the Zcash none, the Zcash, the difference between the Zcash is in with one type of Zcash, you need to know 100% of what's going to happen within that transaction before you sign it. Whereas the Zcash none allows you to make that transaction without knowing 100% what your counterparty is about to do.
Interesting. Could like maybe you could. Okay, my second question would be. Is launching a market for any like runes token permissionless, or does it need like to come and like talk to the people at Saturn to basically like are the markets approved or not approved?
So every single rune that is etched or is minted rather is visible on Saturn, so it's completely permissionless. And when we put our launchpad live as well, that will also be completely permissionless.
So I can, if I launch a rune, I can basically pop like Radium. I can basically pop up market for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. That is great. And maybe that's probably the questions I had. And the first question, please, like if you can ask your engineers and take this conversation offline and get back to me because that is very like intriguing to me personally.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm juggling a lot of plates at the moment. As much as I'd love to be as well versed as our engineers, I'm unfortunately not.
All right. Well, thank you, and congratulations again on the launch. Good luck.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Wow, some really good, solid technical back-to-back questions here.
Yeah, you have a professional listener base. I love it.
Hey, we get in deep. Emblem's a pretty technical company, and we love talking with builders and sharing the frustrations and the trade-offs and the complexity of it all. I have one final question for you, and it kind of just piggybacking off of the last two of how technical or simple, I guess, how you look at it. Some of these protocols are. As you were building Saturn, did you the team consider using any type of off-chain mechanisms? As we've seen with some of these trade-offs, some people will use the EVM for platform accounting, or some people will go build their own app chain for specific use cases. Was there any type of consideration for this to make it a little bit more simple?
I am a base layer maxi, for better or worse. I will go down with that ship. Everything that we can do on chain, we will do on chain. I think there's going to be some really creative solves as we get down the line, which makes being an everyday user not so expensive. But I'm a firm believer that we need to solve on-chain fees. We need to be paying fees. It's a very tricky thing to navigate. But yeah, I've always been a firm advocate that we need to make as much of this on-chain as physically possible.
Chris, you have any final questions here?
Yeah, I was just thinking about, we talked about how kind of segmented all of the different fungible token markets are. Ethereum traders, there's NFT traders, users on Solana, on-chain activity all throughout all different chains, but the user base is really diversified. Where do you see most of the users coming on chain to kind of use Saturn? Are you targeting new users, more targeting, the infamous ancient Bitcoin whales that everyone always seems to bring up? Or is it just kind of targeting a new segment? Where is kind of the focus to onboarding like your core user base? Where are you guys looking so far?
I love the framing there. I'm also team that these ancient Bitcoin whales with billions and billions of, they're not coming. Then yeah, I think that's a naive endeavor to believe in. Yeah, I mean, like, to be frank, like, we can only fight so many battles. I'm not the most influential person on the planet. I'm not going to be the person that tips the scale to getting people to trade runes. We're very much in the business of just providing a very focused tool. Like, we want to make the best tool for trading fungibles on Bitcoin, not so much in kind of like onboarding the masses. That being said, I would love to. And if we have the time and resources to be able to do so, I will. But I believe there are much more talented people out there, much more influential people out there than myself that are doing a really good job of this. And yeah, I mean, I don't really feel like I have the platform to make the impact that would make the trade-off in time worth it. But in more of like a literal sense, like, where are we trying to find our users? It would be from people, the Bitcoin native on-chain users anyway, the people that are already trading ordinals, already trading rune tokens. Like, they're the users that we want to cater for, and just make something really useful for them. And if we can do a good job of that, and we still have a long way to go, I think then we can kind of iterate from there and try to grow the pie a little bit more.
No, I love it. I think, you know, it's BRCs and runes as they stand today. You know, they're in kind of this mismatch of, you know, different traders throughout the ecosystem. Like BRCs and the way that runes are today, they kind of trade more like NFTs traded. You've traded NFTs, you've been in NFTs for a while. Just kind of the model of buying batches is very similar to the way that, you know, non-fungibles would trade, right? Just a single batch instead of a single asset. And then you have fungible token traders who are mostly on the DEX side and things of that nature. So I don't mean kind of onboarding, you know, the masses or anything like that. Just if you have any insights to the commonalities that your users are seeing, or where you're kind of seeing, you know, the biggest parallels between the different groups, if you have any insights to that. But it's also early, so totally understandable if you're not too in the weeds on it.
That's actually a really interesting question. I would say a lot of it comes from like the institutional side of things. Like, every person that we speak to that's used to kind of market making on an institutional level, like, whenever we present this product, it's always like a light bulb moment for them. It's like, oh, holy shit, like, this might actually be possible, compared to like kind of this like batch bundling that users might be used to now. So that's actually a really interesting parallel that I haven't actually thought too much about. And I would say that it's come more from like the cap table side of things and some of like these partners. I think one thing that's kind of really easy to be naive to is like, we as retail users are really like the iceberg on top of this huge institutional body that's underneath us that really makes up a lot of this volume, makes up a lot of like why we have these ecosystems to begin with. So like, candidly, that's kind of like been a large problem that we've been trying to solve for these guys to kind of welcome that in. But that also doesn't make any sense unless there's that kind of like retail facing version of it as well. So yeah, I mean, yeah, candidly, not something I've thought a great deal about, but if I would have to say, it's like where we found the most like synergy has been from like more of the institutional level.
Love it, man. If you had to say, you know, building day in, day out, I love your North Star of just kind of building a great product and letting the product speak for itself. What else do you think might be kind of, what else would you highlight as to the most important things that are missing in the ecosystem to kind of really take it to the next level? Is it kind of capital markets, lending? Is it just, you know, more companies building different DEXs to bring in different kinds of users, or just more interesting kind of builders and token distributors building, you know, kind of different products around their tokens? Or what would you say is kind of the point of focus from your perspective, if you don't mind?
The point of focus from my perspective is trying to emulate as much as possible this kind of like AMM. I think that's like a really key unlock, and not one of these bullshit L2 or custody AMM, like a true AMM. But I'm just very like, that's a very narrow point of view. But I think like larger larger point of view, I really don't think we need to mid-curve this too much. Like Bitcoin is the biggest blockchain in market cap, and we haven't even unlocked 0.001% of that really in terms of like fungible activity. So I think like anyone with half a brain just needs to know that this doesn't even need to be 5% of a success as people are hoping for it to be enormous. So I think that side of it's there. One side that has disappointed me, like with a space that's been like so rich, full of culture, like the ordinal maxi business like vibe was really empowering, and it felt like we were really fucking doing something on ordinals. And there's been a few projects like that as well. Like I think puppets have been fantastic, but I mean, from a token point of view, I mean, shouts out to Leonidas for doing just a relentless job of shilling his bags. Like he's just doing a crazy good job there. But outside of that, like, yeah, I mean, there's a handful actually, because it's quite a shame. Like there's some good teams out there, but like, yeah, I mean, I think we're missing a really good viral token at this point that people can kind of get behind. We need more of those, obviously, but I think more like narrow point of view, I think like solving from the AMM side of things, I think will be really interesting. And I say that very cautiously because we haven't even begun tackling that like 1%. So don't get your hopes up for any kind of like base layer AMM appearing anytime soon on Saturn unless we have some kind of crazy breakthrough.
Wow. Well, Hex, I really appreciate you for coming on and, you know, really holding your own throughout the entire conversation, from the simple questions to a little bit more of the technical complex ones, especially when you're not the dev either, right? You just kind of understand it from the conceptual level. Sometimes it's really hard to explain when you get those technical questions.
Yeah, I'm the empty vessel that has to make the loudest noises. But yeah, no, I try to learn as much as I can from the engineering side of things because it is super important. But yeah, I do not write the code. I'm not the smart one in the room. I'm just the guy here to talk about what we do.
I'm completely there with you. Same exact position on the Emblem side. But yeah, again, man, really appreciate it. It's really cool to see you introducing new innovations and new products to this space. This is how we all move it forward instead of doing the same copy pasta over and over and over that happens, you know, across the ecosystem. Not pointing fingers anywhere, but it is a very common copy pasta place. So really excited for you to join the show and learn more about it, and really wish you the best moving forward. Would you like any final comments before we do wrap it up here?
No, not really. I mean, like, I guess just a few things as well. Like, if there's any other questions that you have, like, feel free to jump in the Discord. There's always somebody there willing to help out. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Obviously, give ourselves a follow. Huge shouts out to you guys for hosting. You guys have been fantastic hosts. It's not often I get to have a spaces where people aren't just talking about something really stupid and shouting at each other. It's nice to actually chop it up about what we're doing. So that's really cool. Thanks for doing that. And yeah, hopefully we can do it again sometime. Few other things that might be interesting for the users. There are airdrops coming. We haven't introduced anything, but we are putting a premium weighting on people that can just come help fill out the order books, play around with the platform. So if you're interested in innovation, you've got 5-10 minutes to spare. It might be worthwhile just kind of making a couple transactions and seeing what we've built.
And yeah, really excited to see. I'll be following along and participating as the Saturn ecosystem grows. For those that aren't aware, Adam's not here, but Chris and myself, we work at Emblem Vault, the leading cross-chain NFT protocol in the industry with over 100 million in TVV. That's total value vaulted. That's our play on TVL. We host a show Tuesday through Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Tomorrow, we are hosting our Emblem Town Hall, our monthly town hall, where we will give you all of the updates. If you didn't hear earlier this week, we launched our first Emblem on Bitcoin vault and our first time-locked vault, which we did in a collaboration with the famous Bitcoin puzzle artist, Coin Artist, where I believe the auction actually ends today. The highest bid on that ordinal was around 20,000 last time I checked. I do believe that runs and ends here pretty shortly. Please give everyone on stage a follow. Emblem, Chris, myself. Please give Hex and Saturn a follow. Always give Hooked on Roonies a follow, one of our favorite regular guests on the show. Until then, we'll be back at 11:30 a.m. tomorrow. I recommend if you do join the show tomorrow, please watch the live stream. I did make a very awesome PowerPoint, which I do for every town hall. And until then, guys, please enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe out there. Try Saturn out, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.